Hi, I'm Carmen.
And I'm Steven, and this is Vienna Past and Present, where we stroll through the gilded and sometimes not so gilded halls of Vienna's history. You may have noticed a tragic news story recently, the death of Felix Baumgartner, an Austrian professional daredevil. I think both of us knew of him vaguely, but after a bit of Googling, we thought his story deserved a deeper look. And as we researched him, his story started to feel like a natural follow-up to our last episode about Wilhelm Reich. Felix was another very original character and risk-taker. Reich may have invented and sat in cosmic orgasm boxes, but Felix probably got closer to interacting with real cosmic elements. This is another time we're kind of leaving the Vienna city limits, and it's the first time we're leaving Earth's atmosphere, at least partially. How's that for a teaser?
I mean, pretty good. I like the tie-in to Reich.
It was a lot, but yeah, I think I'm going okay.
All right, so the cosmos is where we're at. We're going high, at least higher than anyone really thought possible for a skydiver, which is typically what Baumgartner is known as, right? I think if you Google him, it will say that he's an Austrian skydiver, but he did a lot more than that.
Okay.
He's also a pretty controversial figure, which we will get into. So he's known for jumping off some of the tallest, strangest, and most dangerous things in the world. And in 2012, he went so far as to break the sound barrier in freefall, which is what you briefly referenced in terms of leaving Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah, so we're back at the recent past. This may be another case of a person who defies the rules, defies common sense, then eventually departs from it completely or partially, you be the judge, and maybe pays the price for it. I'm guessing he knew that price, though. Bit of a spoiler alert, but yeah, definitely a risk taker, maybe more of a doer than a thinker. Good story, but maybe a tragic one. Okay, you're probably getting it, so I'll stop now. Okay, but actually before that, what's our bias going into this? Carmen, would you consider yourself a daredevil kind of person? A daredevil appreciator? Like, what's your view of roller coasters, for example?
No, I don't think I would call myself a daredevil. I mean, yeah, no, not exactly.
Yeah.
Why are you laughing?
I mean, no, it's like, it's not something you think about with your friends or people that you know, or at least I don't, right? Which is probably another part of my answer to this. Like, I don't really think of myself as a daredevil. I don't really think about roller coasters. I forget they exist. It's not something I really get a charge out of. Like, if someone jumps off something, I'm not like, wow, I need to watch that 2-hour biopic movie about the person. Like, not really.
I will say I do like some of those biopic kind of things, but I think I like it much...
Yeah, randomly they're good.
And I think I like it more from, like, the human psychology aspect of it,
Totally.
Like what drives people to do this, and how do they kind of react to these extreme circumstances, and why are they putting themselves into these extreme situations. So that I find very interesting, but the actual thing itself, like, no, I'm not an adrenaline junkie. Yeah. I don't need to be jumping off things. Roller coasters, as a kid, I liked them,
right? But
I think by age like 16, I was over it. I was done.
Yeah. Right. Yes, I think your answer is revealing, right? You like the movies, but you're not like, oh, what stunt did he do? You're more like, why? Why the hell is this person doing it? That's what I heard in your answer. And yeah, agree. So maybe this continues our tradition, like with the Eurovision episodes. We review things that we're not the target audience for. Okay, so that's our jobs at this point, I guess. Sorry to any Felix fans, but we're trying, okay? We're trying our best.
Yeah, I think let's just own the fact that we like to talk about things that we don't know that much about.
Yeah.
Or that we're not
An
that
outsider's
into.
view.
An outsider's
yeah, outsiders. View. So where does his story start?
All right, so Felix Baumgartner was born in 1969 in Salzburg, and he grew up in really a pretty ordinary Austrian household from the sound of things.
Okay.
But from really a very young age, he was obsessed with flying, and he drew airplanes, he tinkered with model helicopters, and then, at some point, from what I understand from really a pretty young age, he started dreaming of jumping out of them. So I think definitely an adrenaline junkie sort of from the jump.
And this wasn't cited, like where this came from. I kept seeing online that early exposure to Austria's scenic alpine landscapes further fueled his passion for heights and adventure. So does this make the story even more uniquely Austrian? Maybe I'm reaching, but I'm going to put that out there. Yeah, so some kids climb trees. Felix was like looking for ways to jump out of them, maybe?
Exactly. exactly. I mean, he took it to another level. And he began skydiving as a teenager. I read different things. Like, his story is also not super clear. There's something where I read that he was 16 when he first skydived. Then I also saw 17. And from what I read, 17 is actually the earliest that you were allowed to do that in Austria. So 17 seems more likely to me. But anyway, there's like, various accounts. But he was somewhere apparently around 16 or 17 when he began skydiving and did his first skydiving jump. And then after he finished school, he joined the Austrian military's parachute corps. And that was really what gave him training and discipline to master precision jumps and landings. And he took to it very quickly, and he became so skilled that manufacturers actually recruited him to test experimental parachutes.
Okay, I didn't really research this, but it's kind of sounding like, there's test driving cars, but, in this case, your car malfunctions and you die? Like, I'm kind of curious what parachute testing involves.
That's actually a really good question.
Yeah.
Especially because it's experimental parachutes. I mean, that sounds even more dicey. What are we experimenting?
Right. I guess that was a Google too far for me, though, so, that question will remain. Anyway, so at this point, Felix's impulsivity started to be a factor for him, I would say. He ultimately wasn't army material. In his own words, he had problem being a subordinate. He couldn't follow, quote, stupid orders. He was actually classified as militarily unsuitable, and he was dismissed from the army. Shortly after that, he trained as a boxer. He won his only semi-pro fight, but then stopped for kind of unclear reasons. Information is kind of thin for a few years, but then, a few years later, he starts training with an American base jumper in Bavaria. That was in 1996, and that was kind of the beginning of his daredevil fame years.
He also really pushed beyond traditional skydiving into base jumping, and when I looked into this, I went down a little rabbit hole about base jumping, because I've never thought about it too much. I mean, I've obviously heard of it as an expression.
Yeah, I just thought it's like you jump off something, you don't have a parachute. That's kind of all I knew.
Yeah, although it turns out that it actually often does involve a parachute. So I think it's evolved into something where you have these like wing suits, right? Which is what I think of it now as. But when I was Googling it, first of all, do you even know what BASE stands for? Because I did not. I didn't even know it was an acronym.
I mean, you just jump to a base, right? No, I don't. I didn't.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't even know there was a question to be answered. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. But no, BASE stands for... Oh, wait, now I have to remember it. What was it? Buildings, antenna, spans, which I guess means bridges, and earth. Okay. So it's jumping off of buildings, antennas, bridges, and earth, which I guess means cliffs. Yeah, just it's jumping from fixed objects. And so that's what it started as. But they did use parachutes initially, and I guess even still today. It was very, very fringe when it first started, illegal generally, because you were jumping off places that you were actually not allowed to be. You're typically not allowed to be on the top of some high building. Yeah. And of course, incredibly dangerous, right? But it would make him very famous in the end.
Okay.
And then when I was looking into this, I also was thinking that, he started base jumping in the 1970s in the 1980s, I think. And I kind of thought like, oh, that sounds like he was very much at the forefront of it. It sounds like he was maybe really early. When did base jumping even start, right? And so then when I went a little bit further down this rabbit hole, I found that apparently the first person believed to ever build and test a parachute was a man called Fausto Veranzio, who jumped from the bell tower of St. Mark's Cathedral in Venice in 1617, which... Wow. What?
Okay, yeah. To me, it seems like kind of a 1980s, like, extreme sport invention.
I mean, I think ultimately it kind of is in the current form, but the fact that somebody was, like, parachuting off of St. Mark's Cathedral in the 17th century is just completely wild to me.
Yeah.
Slightly older than I thought, but the acronym BASE itself was coined in the 1970s, so that's much more in line with what I expected.
Gotcha.
And I would say for all intents and purposes, like how we understand base jumping today, it started in the 70s.
So yeah, he started in 1996. His base jumping training, quote unquote, question mark. Again, I don't know this scene very well. His big breakout came in 1999 when he jumped off the Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, then the tallest buildings in the world. Security tried to stop him, but he managed to sneak up, leap off, and parachute safely. So if you're asking yourself, wow, you can do that? Legally, the answer is absolutely not. He actually snuck in the parachute in a briefcase and jumped off a window cleaning crane. He recorded a video of it, and you can see it on YouTube pretty easily. It was interesting. He's hurrying, but he seems pretty relaxed the whole time. Like, that's kind of the most impressive part. As impressive as the jumping to me, actually. So it's wild. Like, you can see this 5-minute video.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just need to be ballsy all around, right? To do the jump, yes, but to even get there...
And just be so calm about it.
Yeah, and climbing out on some window crane.
Yeah, for me, I'm like, hey, I want the real parachute. I don't want a briefcase parachute for this. I kept thinking that. I'm like, I want the extra triple strength, okay, parachute.
Right, I don't want some tangled up thing that I've just like hastily...
I don't want a travel size. No.
Yeah.
Tallest buildings in the world. It's just... Anyway.
I mean, yeah, it's a different kind of person, I think. But anyway, I mean, he didn't stop there either. He kind of was always trying to top himself. And in 1999, he climbed onto the arm.
Same year.
The same year, later that year, yeah, exactly. I think the Petronas Tower was like somewhere in the spring. And then I think it was in December that he went to Christ the Redeemer, the statue in, where is that, Rio de Janeiro, right?
Mm-hmm, in Brazil, yeah.
Right, in Brazil. And he climbed out on the arm of the Christ the Redeemer statue, which apparently is barely wide enough to even really stand on, and he jumped off of that. And this was, I think, my notes say officially, but actually I'm not sure that's totally true because it ended up being a bit controversial.
Okay.
But anyway, it is recorded in various places as the lowest ever completed base jump with a height of just 95 feet or 29 meters. And that's apparently even more dangerous than jumping from a super high building because you just have less space to actually... There's like less margin of error, right? If something goes wrong, you have no time to adjust. But this jump is controversial because, he gave that as the height of the jump, and that is the height of the hand of Christ the Redeemer to the ground. But he actually landed on a slope below the statue's feet, so he got a few meters extra. So it was a bit more height than he had claimed. And other base jumpers had also previously jumped from the statue, so he was not the first one.
Okay.
But the others avoided publicity, and he was the first one to really publicize it and kind of make a big thing out of it. And from the sounds of it, at least around that time, I don't think he was too popular in the base community because he was sort of doing some self-promotion and, maybe not quite in the spirit of the rest of the community.
Right. So, I mean, at the risk of this becoming a base jumper community drama show, yeah. People can Google that. I'm kind of curious now, too. What that conversation would be like. No, you didn't. You landed on a slope that's 4 feet. Anyway, go ahead.
It was at least 31 meters, not 29. Stop fudging the numbers.
Yeah, I don't care anymore, yeah.
Right. He didn't stop there either. So he was kind of always coming up with new stunts and new kind of, records and stuff that he could break. And so in 2003... this was when he really started to use these carbon fiber wing suits. And so he strapped on one of these custom wing suits and he became the first person to fly across the English Channel in free fall. And when I initially read this, I was like, what? How does that? I don't even understand how that works, right? How are you flying across the English Channel in free fall?
Yeah. It seems too long. Or like too wide for that.
And how high are you starting? And how is any of this working?
Yeah.
From what I understand, apparently it's 35 kilometers wide.
Okay.
And I thought he was just like jumping off the cliffs of Dover or something, which wouldn't really work. It turns out he did jump out of an airplane for this and then just kind of glided down towards the French coast somewhere. Pretty much flying squirrel style.
Okay.
And it took him 14 minutes to glide over these 35 kilometers, which, I mean, it's a decent speed.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I mean, again, impressive, wildly unappealing to me personally, but I'm very impressed, right? Like, my gosh, you just are, wingsuiting across the channel? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you do you, but yeah, so unappealing to me as well. Like, zero inclination to ever do anything remotely like that.
Yeah. Okay, so he's very known for his stuff with Red Bull. Where does Red Bull come into all of this?
Yes, exactly. So, Baumgartner had been working with Red Bull since the late 1990s. They were already sponsoring extreme athletes and events. And Baumgartner actually went to Red Bull to team up with them, and they denied him initially because, I don't know, he was not well known. And, base jumping at the time, it was kind of like, we don't really know what this is about. And so I think he had done over 30 base jumps or something like that by the time Red Bull finally said, like, oh, okay, yeah, we're going to sponsor you. And so he ended up becoming one of their athletes for these extreme events that they put on. And then Baumgartner, together with Red Bull, came up with something that went way beyond base jumping, and that became the thing he was most famous for, which is called the Stratus project.
Okay.
And in a way, they kind of are a perfect match anyway, Baumgartner and Red Bull. Both of them are Austrian, right? Red Bull is an Austrian company, and he's, at least at this point, one of the most well-known of any Austrian athletes that they sponsor. I would say he's probably the Red Bull extreme athlete that people might know. And so they were a good combo in the end, but it took a while for them to get together and to actually start doing things together.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me, but, I think like a lot of people, he's sort of the person that I associate with them, even if I had these kind of hazy memories of somebody jumping. Yeah, definitely fits their brand. So it's interesting to hear that he went to them. I guess I always assumed it was the other way around.
That was my assumption too, yeah. But no, apparently it took a while for them to get on board.
Yeah. So the Stratus project kind of reads like, we're going to give a man a spacesuit, give him a balloon, millions of dollars, and like GoPro him falling.
I think it was a little more elaborate than a GoPro, but I mean, effectively, yeah.
All right. So what happened?
All right. So the Stratus project. This is what I assume people would know Baumgartner from. So the planning for this whole project began in 2005.
Okay.
And the idea was to launch Baumgartner in a pressurized capsule to the stratosphere. So about 39 kilometers up into space. And then to have him jump and basically go into free fall and break the sound barrier on the way down.
And it seems like they took pains to convince people that this was more than just a marketing stunt too, right? Like they involved scientists, engineers, doctors who hoped to learn how the human body reacts to near space conditions. Supposedly that knowledge was going to help astronauts, pilots, maybe even future space tourists who would face these conditions. So there's a lot of kind of ambition wrapped up in here.
I mean, that is true, but the cynic in me finds it a little hard to buy.
I know. As I was reading that, I think you could hear it. I was kind of like, wait, Red Bull? But
also future space tourists. Maybe we should find out what Katy Perry took from this whole...
That's right.
I'm sure she studied this to prepare for her adventures.
She could consult now, right?
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, the risks definitely were massive because 39 kilometers up at that altitude, if his suit failed, his blood could literally boil from the low pressure, apparently, which is kind of crazy. And if he went into an uncontrolled spin, which was one of the major concerns, and which did actually happen for a short period of time,
wow,
he could have also lost consciousness from the spinning and then also died because he would have not been able to recover from an uncontrolled spin.
Yeah, and I guess I didn't know it was this high. You said 39 kilometers up. I think when I saw that video, I'm just like, oh, he's at 2-3 kilometers. I don't know. Like it just didn't. Just because you think like a company, a drink company, if something goes wrong, it'd be just disastrous, right? Or if you read about something, it's like, yeah, that time that Red Bull had someone jump from space and the person died, you'd be like, duh.
Yeah.
You'd be like, why would anyone be surprised? How idiotic. Anyway, so what happened?
All right. So what happened was that there were many years, of course, of test flights and trying to prepare for all of this and getting the engineering just right.
Good to hear.
Which, yes, is good.
Good to
which
hear.
Might be why he survived the thing. Spoiler alert. But the Stratus jump finally happened on October 14th of 2012. And he ascended in a massive helium balloon, which was the largest ever built, to,
wow,
as we said, to more than 39 kilometers above Earth. I did watch this, and I don't remember exactly how it worked, but like he ascended in a helium balloon. Like how exactly? Not sure.
Yeah.
But he did somehow get to 39 kilometers above Earth.
There was a live feed. It showed him standing in the capsule doorway. Earth curves kind of beneath him. Like it really looks like space. He then saluted, said, "I'm going home now," and he stepped off.
Yeah. And then he fell for nearly 4 minutes in free fall, reaching a top speed of 1,357 kilometers per hour, which is insane. I don't even know what to do with that. Apparently that's Mach 1.25. That means nothing to me. Does that mean anything to you?
That's like airplane speeds.
Yeah, something like that. And he became the first human to break the sound barrier without a vehicle. And like I mentioned before, he did spin dangerously at first. So there was a period where he kind of went into this uncontrolled spin briefly, but he managed to regain control, and he deployed his parachute at about 2,500 meters and ultimately landed safely in the New Mexico desert.
What?
Yeah.
Just get up there and you're like, hey, aim for New Mexico, okay?
Right.
What? So over 8 million people watched live on YouTube. That was a record at the time. And coincidentally, that's like the entire population of Austria watching it once. Okay, factoid. Okay, I kind of doubt it was all them, but you know.
There might have been a few other people also watching, but yeah, that would be the whole population of the country. I watched it, but I only really vaguely remember it at this stage. I have to say, looking back, I'm surprised that YouTube managed to handle this, like 8 million live stream, like people watching at the same time. Like,
right.
Shocked they didn't, have an overload and a crash.
Yeah.
But it was an event, and, it's not every day that Austria makes headline news, and so people tuned in. Anytime there's something that is halfway positive about Austria in the news, we do tune in. Yeah, I do think I watched it live. Honestly, I think I remember it being kind of boring, because, he just jumps out and falls, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And it's grainy footage. It's obviously not a very good image of what's happening. The question is was there an actual point to it? Stephen, you said that scientists wanted to study how the human body reacts in such conditions. Did they learn anything? Or was this like a pre-social media version of Katy Perry Goes to Space?
Okay. That's a second Katy Perry joke. And I think it's fair. Yeah.
That's my modern reference.
Right. I think it's kind of unclear. I dug into what actual science came from it. The most promising data had to do with the prevention of ebulism, and that's not embolism. It's just E-B-U-L-L-ism. That's a condition that happens in high altitude where water vapor bubbles form in your body where they shouldn't. It sounds like a lot of data was collected and engineering concepts were proven, but I couldn't find any major contribution to science, in the form of a paper. At least not that I could discern. I'm not a scientist myself. Maybe I don't know how to read these abstracts correctly. But yeah, on a scale of, between Katy and NASA, it's probably above Katy Perry's contributions to science, but I don't feel like this is a NASA grade. Oh, here, now everybody knows this thing we do every day because Felix's jump. So yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what the reaction would be to that is it's laughter, maybe you're sad. So anyway, how did he follow this up? How could Felix even follow this up?
Well, it's a tough one to follow up on, right? Jumping from space, having 8 million people watching you live. There's not really very far you can go after that. And in fact, after that jump, he announced his retirement from extreme jumping. So that was kind of the peak of it for him. And then he shifted more towards helicopter piloting, flying rescue and firefighting missions, and he even tried out motor racing for a short period of time. Okay. Very Felix-y. You retire from extreme stunts by taking on slightly different extreme stunts that are maybe 5% less extreme. More earthbound, right. I guess. There's something to say for that. Yeah. He kind of moved on to those sort of things. But what he made headlines for in the last years, after his retirement, was his very outspoken political views. And he took on some very controversial stances on issues like immigration and COVID, sparking debates and really dividing public opinion in Austria. So I would not say that he's very well liked or popular. And in addition to that, he was also convicted of battery in 2012 after slapping a truck driver in the face. So, it was not smooth sailing, I would say, after his Stratus project jump. Yeah, it was kind of my sense, too, as I was reading through this stuff. He seemed to transition to being in the news for weird and or wrong-ish reasons. He called random prominent people idiots and whores.
on social media. These were men, actually. He had to pay a defamation fine at one point for that. And I don't know if he was in the news for this exactly, but he also built a bit of a reputation for himself by dating beauty queens, including German Playboy Playmates of the Year. He dated a Miss Lower Austria 2006, and he was in this decade-long relationship with a Romanian TV presenter at the time of his death. So yeah, I guess he liked, prominent, sexy women. I don't know what to say. But like maybe kind of a Barbie doll aesthetic.
Yeah, and I mean, he kind of ended up just being a bit of a tabloid fixture afterwards, right? And being in the news for his political views and, various run-ins with the law rather than anything that would be inspiring or something you would look up to, right? Which I think with the Stratos project, the jump from space, he did have this kind of aura around him of, he did something nobody else had done before and had a lot of people looking up to him for that. And then I don't think he managed to maintain that very well because, he, as you said, was in the news for the wrong reasons, really. But ultimately, the Stratos jump was the thing that did have some lasting impact. It definitely was good marketing for Red Bull, and it was publicity for Baumgartner. I don't think I knew who he was before that. I assume most people had.
I didn't, for sure.
I'm pretty sure I didn't know either. And my cynical interpretation is that it was mostly a PR and marketing stunt, but I guess it did also provide some valuable data around pressure suits and high-altitude survival.
Potentially.
And, I will say, all the engineering that goes into even building that kind of capsule and getting him into space, there must be a value to that as well, right? It did set a benchmark for what human beings could physically endure, and it proved that the sound barrier could be broken in free fall, which had not been done before.
Yeah, like new benchmarks for energy drink advertising.
Which is what it's really about.
Okay. Yeah, so that brings us to today, or today-ish. Just recently, the news broke that Felix died in a paragliding crash during a routine flight. What was routine for him? I'll let that question kind of hang as I guess I couldn't really tell you more than I've told you already. He was 56.
Right, which is unfortunate, but also tragically fitting somehow. He lived his whole life on the edge. And, actually, it's a little shocking, I would say, that it wasn't base jumping or the stratosphere or flying across the English Channel that he died from. It was ultimately motorized paragliding, which seems very tame for him. This was like his retirement activity. Mm-hmm. So you would have expected that at this point he kind of had survived most of the things that could have really gone wrong. But yeah, tragically, he did end up dying just recently, I think just 2 months ago or so, if even that much.
Yeah, maybe not that spectacular end, like you're saying, but definitely still in the extreme sport category to me, I guess. The details I could find about the death seem to conflict a little bit. Some stories suggest there was a problem with his paraglider. Other sources seem to say that he suffered a cardiac event while flying, but they both say that he crashed into a hotel pool in Italy. He injured someone on the ground, and he was probably dead instantly, regardless. Terrible. But it feels like there could be worse deaths in that scenario, or like you were saying, certainly for him and all the different stunts he had done in his life.
Yeah, it's a bit sad, of course, but I think if you're in that extreme sport arena, either...
It seems like something you would think about.
And I think either you really fully quit, which most of these people can't do because they're sort of out for that adrenaline rush, or you kind of die doing one of these things. Those are sort of the only ways that it can end. The aftermath has been somewhat complicated. So like I said, he's been quite a controversial figure the last couple of years. And so on the one hand, Austria and the international extreme sports community mourned him and are mourning him. There were tributes in the press. People shared memories of watching that 2012 jump live, which I think did connect quite a lot of people around sort of one singular event that everyone experienced together. But on the other hand, because of his controversial politics and some of his past behavior, the response hasn't been universally warm, right? He was divisive in life, and he remains divisive in death.
One thing Austria did do was add his name to the Straße der Champions, the Street of Champions.
Excuse me. It's called Straße der Sieger.
Oh, I thought I did the German wrong. I'm like, what? This seems like a simple pronunciation.
Champions is English, so it's Straße der Sieger.
Okay.
Which means Street of Champions. Yes, correct.
Okay. So it's basically a sort of honorary street where Austrian sports legends get plaques with their names on them, kind of like Walk of Fame, but like Viennese just for sports stars.
So I didn't really know about this until we were looking into this episode. And so I looked it up, and I have seen this. I mean, I've seen these plaques with names and handprints around the city, but I never really paid attention to it. And I think I assumed...
That's like any city, right? Okay? There's plaques on streets, okay? Yeah.
And I think I just assumed it was like old Austrian composers or something. I mean, I had no idea that this was some sort of like...
Felix Baumgartner composer? Okay.
Yeah, but apparently, I mean, or at least some part of this, I guess, is dedicated to sports people. Yeah, I mean, this is news to me, but all right.
I just figured it was another Mozart thing, though. It got it.
Yes.
Anyway, like, it seems like a nice gesture. Maybe it's not, something downtown, but, an honor.
Yeah. Maybe it's an honor. Honestly, I don't know. I didn't even know that this collection of plaques had a name, and I could not have told you that it was supposed to be a street. But maybe I'm also thinking of other plaques. I don't know. I know, or the ones I'm thinking of are, I think, distributed around the city.
Okay.
And this street is apparently like somewhere by Maria-Hilfer-Straße, from what I understand, which is not super central, but it's not super far out either. In any case, I don't think it's an attraction that anybody really goes to, and it's not one that the city's promoting. That much I think I can say.
Yeah, so maybe this is kind of a good reflection of this, love-ish, hate-ish relationship that Austria had with him. And it kind of makes me think of this like whole hidden art, right? I think it's called Technically Still Standing Memorials. So these are, the memorials that are moved out to like these out of the way places, to the museum basement, or maybe they'll just be reframed to like feature just a certain part of a person's life, So for Felix, it's like, okay, he jumped from space-ish. Yay, like that kind of reframing. So yeah, there's the memorials that are kind of there, they're kind of not. So like everybody's happy or equally disappointed, on either side of this issue. But again, we are not people who are moved by daredevils. Take all this with a grain of salt. Maybe that makes us more fair.
Maybe. Sure. Let's
Maybe.
say so.
Yeah.
But I will say I am interested in trying to just what drives people to do this, right? Because it's so not something that I would ever be interested in doing.
Right.
But that's what makes it even more interesting to me, that there are people that are just so, I don't know, drawn towards doing these extreme things, and they have some sort of like internal drive and push that I just don't have at all. And so trying to, understand that somehow, I do think is interesting.
Yeah. Definitely an interesting life.
Yeah, so, he did a lot. He was in the news, and for better or for worse, he's a divisive guy, and yeah, I guess it kind of ended in a way that it had to end, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was an end.
And speaking of the end, that's also the end of our show. So, thank you for listening.
Smooth.
Right? Was that a good segue? I liked it.
It's pretty good.
Thanks. So, thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, share with your friends or leave us a 5-star review. And if you didn't like it, then, don't worry about that review.
Right. You can find us on social medias, Vienna Past and Prez on Instagram, or send us your episode ideas at viennapastandpresent@gmail.com.
Auf Wiedersehen, pfiat euch, Baba.
Bye.